Welcome back, Guevesa. I'm here at the request of one of my commenters to do a video on the Crisis Suits. They are by far my favorite unit, and I'll give you a little bit of run through of what I think of them, how I use them, and the like. So, first and foremost, I'm going to tell you that Crisis Suits are by far my favorite unit in the Tau Codex. They are the reason that I started playing Tau to begin with. They are absolutely like the Swiss Army knife of the Tau. Whatever you need, Crisis Suits can give it to you, and they give it to you in the best possible package. I love Crisis Suits so much that when I first started, it was my mission to run a full Crisis Suit army. And you know what? I did, and I can't think of a time where I lost or didn't table my opponent. And I know that's kind of a feels bad for your opponent, but who cares? It was so much fun. It was great. It was always like come from behind because my opponent would get better board control than I, and it was a good time. But I digress. Let's get into the Crisis Suit itself. We'll just take a look at the general data sheet, and then I'll tell you exactly how I use them. So it's pretty obvious. They're one of your best all-around Tau units. Movement 10, they're really fast. Toughness 5, that is really good. It was better in 9. So right now our toughness is a little low. We probably should have got T6 because that would help us against a lot of small arms fire, but I digress. Maybe we'll get in the balanced data slate, but we'll see. So T5, really good. 3-up save, they're like wearing power armor, also good. Wish we still had iridium armor for the 2-up, but that's besides the point. 4 wounds, very healthy. Leadership 2-up and OC 2. Leadership and OC I'm not really going to focus on too much because they're more of the damage dealers. If they're going to be on a point, they'll have killed everything off of it. And if your Crisis are taking that heavy casualties, the unit might just be wiped because your opponent will just focus so much firepower to obliterate them completely. Because if you leave them even a little bit alive, they'll kill you. So there are a couple extra things that we can add on to for the Crisis Suits. There are 3 key aspects to the Crisis Suit: their defense, their offense, and their mobility. And for their mobility, a boost to it is the Auto Advance 6, which is great for moving them around the board, and also their deep strike capacities, so they can be wherever you want, whenever you need them. Their offensive capability is phenomenal. Everyone knows that the Cyclic Ion Blaster is the best thing to take. I agree and disagree. It really depends on what you're needing them to do. And their defensive capabilities, you give them a shield generator for free, 4-up invuln, auto take all the time, and you get 2 extra shield drones, which gives them 2 extra wounds. So your boys go from running on 4 wounds to 6, and it exponentially increases their durability. Pop in sim ejectors, you get a 6-up feel no pain, you give them the Enforcer Commander, they ignore 1 AP. You give these boys Armor of Contempt in an age where that is dead. Except for a stratagem for the Space Marine. But we just get it along with the Enforcer Commander. It's great. I run my Crisis Suits in 3 specific ways. When I fully was able to use Crisis Suits well was when I actually Crisis Suit spammed. Because though they're all Crisis Suits, they had vastly different jobs. I had my home holders, my midfield takers, and my deep strike obliterators. The home holders were pretty obvious. They're your long range guns. They would be out there giving consistent damage all game. They weren't really expected to completely wipe off an enemy unit every turn. They were mostly there to neuter and really hinder the effectiveness of my opponents from a long range. Helped with the missile pods because it would give them an ability 30 inches to outrange most all big heavy guns that would actually make a threat to them. Just dance around in the backfield, hold my home objective if needed, string out to screen out, and just pepper away at my opponents downrange. My midfield takers, those guys were always short-ranged because they're just jumping up the board to eat anything in the midfield objectives and hopefully contest and take. Those guys usually rockin' flamers because it's just auto hit, just like jump up, spray, pray. And what I needed with them was direct durability. This is the ability to take a punch and be able to rebound just fine. So I'd always rock shield generators on these guys to make them more durable and harder to shift. And they were just there to DACA up the midboard. Now we've got the deep strike obliterators. Those are the guys that you're loading up with fusion blasters and cyclic ion blasters. They jump down wherever you need them to be. They'll make line of sight on anything because they can come in within 9 inches and they'll point at it and it'll be dead. And their durability came indirectly. Because whatever they jumped down, they killed, that thing would not be able to attack and kill them. So it's important that you understand the durability of each. The home field holders, it's just average. If shield gen, they're fairly tanky. You're not going to be able to have enough long-range guns to take them out. The midfield takers are directly durable. Shield gens, they tank it, and they're good. You're not going to want to focus too much fire on a bunch of guys with flamers. Let's be real. And the deep strike obliterators were indirect durability. They killed the things that would kill them when they got down, and that's how they were safe. It's important to understand all their durabilities in order to effectively use them, and to understand what exactly you're going for. For example, if you want your long-range firepower, you're loading those guys up with missile pods and plasma rifles. You're just going to plink away from a far safe distance, and the output is fairly high on the missiles versus pretty low on the plasmas. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. Usually what I do is I have 3 of them with missile pods, 3 of them with all plasma rifles. I'll usually have them in 2 ranks, 3 in front and 3 in back. So 3 in front are closer because they have shorter guns, and 3 in back are long-range guns and farther back, so it doesn't matter so much. But they're all usually going to be piling into the same unit. I do this because if you were to have them intermingled, you could move up the board and say, like, your front row guys, their plasma rifles will be in range, but the back row guys won't, because their bases are pretty big, and that takes up some distance they need to shoot. So positioning them, like, I believe that it is most important to give each crisis suit one specific loadout. Either they're hauling all cyclics, all fusions, all flamers, all missiles, or all plasma. So when it comes down to it, later in the game, when your opponent starts chewing through your crisis suits and killing them, your choice is less of, I'm losing a suit and I'm losing a mixed bag, versus I can take out what I think is least effective. If I've got a bunch of 2-wound opponents running around, I'll pull the plasma rifles. They do 3 damage. They only do 1 shot, versus 2 shots from the missile pods, and they do 2 damage. That's enough to take them out. Or if there's a bunch of tanks running around and they get to my long-range firepower, I'm pulling the missiles, because the strength of the plasmas are up, the AP is up, and the damage is up. Like, it's so you can pick and choose. Similarly, for the deep strike guys, I'm usually putting fusions and cyclics together in that. And if I need more massive fire, I'm keeping the cyclics, pulling the fusions. If I need more anti-tank, I'm keeping the fusions, pulling the cyclics. It's nice to have a little bit of a mixed bag, a bit of versatility. And I know we're in an age where if you split fire, you're hitting at -1. And that's tough, but there's ways to play around it with the stratagem of, like, the crisis suits can guide for someone else, and, you know, they can split fire and only hit on 4-ups. Or heck, even the commanders. Oh, that's another thing. Commanders, they completely change how you play them. For example, my guys sitting on the home field objectives, crisis suit commanders, that's what you give them. They don't need to move that fast, kind of just sit where they're at, hold the area, but rerolling ones to hit at range is really effective and really good. The midfield takers, those guys are going to die no matter what. You don't really want to put a commander in there. They're usually hauling burst cannons and flamers. That's not really something that a commander should be using. They should be using more heavy-duty weapons that'll make better use of their 3-up to hit. So if you were to put anyone in there, I'd put Farsight. And heck, you could even sprinkle some fusion blasters in there too. Have 3 flamers, 3 fusion suits, and then Commander Farsight. Farsight will improve the damage that the fusions do against tanks, and heck, the flamers against literally anything. With flamers, you will be wounding on 5-ups at the worst. You will never have to worry about fishing for 6s with Farsight in the squad, because just being within 9 inches, he gives a +1 to wound. And then heck, you don't even care that you're in melee, because you have strength 5 battlesuit fists, and the +1 to wound works in melee. So if you end up getting into a little scuffle with some Marines in the midbourne with Farsight, not only will Farsight probably pick up the Marines on his own because he's just a beast in melee, well, by Tau standards, he's a beast in melee. All the crisis suits, though they hit on 5s, they'll wound on 2s. Wounding on 2s, that's crazy. Against Space Marines. Anyways, or anything like that's T4. Heck, anything that's T5, they'll wound on 3s. And anything T6 to T9, they'll be wounding on 4s. They will never wound on a 6. It just makes their damage output so much better, even in tight spots where they wouldn't actually do well. Not to mention the flamers, if you're in combat, you don't suffer the penalty for shooting because their ballistic skill, there is none. They auto-hit. It doesn't matter. You can also split fire with these guys. You can have them run up. The flamers get rid of any like chaff infantry. And then you have the fusions with the anti-tank, get rid of any tank threats that they have in the area. I think it's good. Having flamers though they're not really the best pick all the time, it gives you suits to pull that aren't as valuable. It also gives you just mass fire, and let's be honest, if you just throw enough things at a wall, something will stick. And in the age of heavy elite armies running around, it's very important that we have just mass stuff, because I went up against my cousin the other day, and I wasn't running any crisis suits. I ran pure infantry Tau. I know, crazy. I'll make a video about it sometime. But if you have enough pulse rifles shooting into Terminator armor, you'll fail one or two of them eventually. And before you know, when you have 6 squads of strikes within rapid fire range unloading into one Terminator squad, those 1s and 2s add up, and he will take casualties. Same way with flamers, especially with a boost to their wounding capabilities, which is the only thing you have to roll for. But I digress. It's also smart to do Farsight with your deep strike guys, so that they're even more lethal with their +1 to wound. And then if they need, they can charge in, take a point or something. So Farsight overall, just best pick to pair up with your crisis suits. The Enforcer Commander is pretty nice if you want your tanky guys in the midfield with the flamers. That'd be pretty good. I would also have to say that for the deep strikers, the Cold Star would be very good, because you could deep strike them in. Well, no, you could do the reserve strat where they can come in at the end of your opponent's turn. So then you can move them around more easily. That would come in real handy, because they're just that much more threatening, because they move 18 inches, because they can auto advance 6 inches, and everything's assault, so they can shoot it all without any penalties to hit. So that's really lethal. But I don't really have much to say on the Cold Star, because I don't own a Cold Star. Never played with one. I know it was all the rage, but not really my thing. I'm pure crisis suits, and I have one Enforcer. That's it. Everything else, Cold Star can't really speak too much to. I know. Lambast me in the comments. I should own one, but I'd like to, but I don't have the time or money for it, sadly. But I digress. Back to crisis suits. There's also the Precision of the Hunter, I believe it's called, that you can give an HQ. You give it to your commander. You load him up with cyclic ion blasters. He's got 4 of them. That's 12 shots. From turn 1 onwards, he hits on 2s. Once Kayun starts, he gets +1 to wound. +1 to hit and then +1 to wound. You drop him in turn 3, cyclic ion blasters. Go to town, man. Overcharge it all. It doesn't matter if he blows up. I mean, like, he'll do way more damage to your opponent. That is definitely 100% points well spent on a Warlord trait to make his lethality that much greater. But I digress. So overall, I'd say that you've got to know what you want to run with him. You've got to know. Do you want guys that are just going to sit in the back and plink away at your opponents from a safe distance? Missile pods, plasma rifles. Give them a crisis suit commander to get them the reroll 1s. They don't really need the extra mobility. They don't really need the extra tankiness. They're not going to be touched too much. Midfield takers, load them up with flamers. Give them some fusions if you want for some anti-tank threat in the middle of the board, because we've got a big vehicle meta going on. Heck, give them Farsight. +1 to wound will definitely help them out. Or the Enforcer, make them more tanky. But you want stuff in the midfield that you'll be able to take out and kill. And the Deep Strike Obliterators, Farsight as well, or the Cold Star, but heck, they usually just pull their own weight, dropping down on their own. They have for all the editions I can remember. But anyways, that's just my thoughts. That's what I do. You've got your 3 different types. And heck, it's your game. Run them how you see fit. I hope you all enjoyed my thoughts. If there's anything that you think I forgot or you wish that I'd added, please let me know in the comments. And if you have any requests, let me know, because that's how I made this video, actually. I made it for my 22nd subscriber, Tau Pathfinder 334, just for you, buddy. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed, and your day goes for the greater good.